Yusuke Murata talks about the mundanity of having superpowers. I discuss this and more on today's episode. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. Today, I want to talk about some manga that I read, and today's manga focuses on superheroes. I am referring to One Punch Man, Volume 1 by Yusuke Murata, which was published in 2012. For those who don't know, Yusuke Murata is a Japanese manga writer, having written a number of series and one-off stories. He's mostly known for writing One Punch Man, which was turned into an anime, which seems to have done very well. I know a lot of people. There was a lot of buzz about it when the anime first came out. But yeah, that's pretty much all I know about Murata. But without further ado, let's talk about One Punch Man Volume 1. I'll do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. So One Punch Man Volume 1 begins with a city being attacked by Vaccine Man, who believes that he's an apostle of the earth. He shows up in the city and begins attacking it, but then a hero named One Punch Man shows up and just kills him with one punch. And then we see One Punch Man's origin, where he's fighting someone called Crabulante, who's trying to attack a child, and the child is drawing mean faces on Crabulante, which the villain doesn't like. But One Punch Man discovers that he has powers and ends up destroying Crabulante with one punch. He also fights the world's strongest man and beats him as well. And then he has a dream about fighting subterraneans, and the dream comes true, and he manages to take them down again with one punch, feeling very saddened by the fact that his powers mean that he doesn't get a thrill from doing this anymore. A giant mosquito queen had the powers of controlling mosquitoes shows up, and a cyborg named Genos tries to fight her. Doesn't seem to be doing all that well, and One Punch Man shows up and manages to help defeat the mosquito queen. And at that point, Genos wants One Punch Man to train him, which I think One Punch Man reluctantly chooses to do. And then a group called the House of Evolution attacks and tries to kill Genos and One Punch Man, or to at least test their powers. But One Punch Man manages to defeat them, and then they confront one of the members who are still alive, Armored Gorilla, and that's where the story ends there. In terms of analysis, there's a little bit worth talking about with One Punch Man. One thing that Murata is touching upon here is that of the mundanity of superpowers. One Punch Man seems bored by his own strength. He even says that there's no real challenge for him anymore because there's no real threat. If you can defeat anyone with one punch, then being a superhero is more of a chore than anything else because you're not really facing an actual challenge. Allow me to read you an interesting quote from this. I have no fear, no joy, no tension, no anger. In exchange for gaining strength, have I lost something important as a human being? Emotions used to swirl within me when I fought. Fear, impatience, anger, but now, day after day, after one punch, I go home unharmed and wash my gloves. And that's just an interesting quote because I do think there's a sense of a loss of humanity there and a sense of boredom there, where if fighting just produces a blank reaction, like if you know you're not going to be hurt, that does sort of take something away from you. And if you lose those emotions, you kind of lose that sense of humanity as well. So there's a question of why you're even bothering to fight. That might probably become a theme throughout the series, if the writer is doing their job. And I'd be very interested to see where Murata takes that. But for now, it's just an interesting tidbit to the overall story. And again, like there's that question of why fight? If if it doesn't feel like I'm a human being, if I'm just a powerful, godlike figure, why am I fighting to save humanity anymore if I'm elevated? Superman has to deal with the same problem, and it's the reason why he chooses to have that secret identity, to be amongst the people of Metropolis and kind of share in that connection. And also, he was raised by humans for his whole life, so there's that connection. But does One Punch Man have the same kind of connection? That's the question to ask. Murata is also doing a little bit of subversion here. They subvert the trope of the epic fight by having One Punch Man just end everything in one punch. All fights are ended that way, and it seems to serve as sort of a punchline, because the villains monologue, they go on these big tangents about how they're all powerful and they're ready to lord over humanity, and then One Punch Man shows up, delivers a punch, and just goes on his day. The monologue was essentially kind of worthless, and it's also interesting because there's a sense of added comedy if only the villains view a fight as serious, because they're all angry that One Punch Man has a blank look on his face. He doesn't even look like a traditional hero. He looks very plain, like the writer or the artist forgot to add additional features to him, but that adds to it, because he's not really that exciting. He's One Punch Man. He doesn't have Clark Kent's good looks, or Batman, or Wonder Woman, or things like that. He's ill-defined. You have this sort of blank-looking hero just ending fights quickly, and it is a bit funny to see how nobody takes him seriously until he's slaughtering everyone around him pretty quickly. It's also funny because Genos has this interesting backstory where he was created he became a cyborg in order to fight a bigger threat. And he goes on this long tangent where he's explaining his backstory. And Saitama is just like, that's enough. I don't want to hear that anymore. That's boring to me. So again, it's sort of like taking the seriousness, taking the gravity, the gravitas of the superhero story, and just kind of dismantling it by showing One Punch Man who's not interested in any of that heroic nobility kind of thing, because again, there is no heroic nature for him if he's just ending the fights very quickly. One last thing I want to note is that One Punch Man has, at least Volume 1, has a lot of world building, kind of building up the threats, building up the other characters, and kind of laying things out for us. But I do think it has the potential to get kind of repetitive, because here you see One Punch Man doing something and then fighting someone beating them with one punch, and then doing something and then fighting another person. Is that all this series is going to be? Where is the potential threat? Where are the stakes in this story? I do think I'm gonna fall off this series if it doesn't have that pizzazz, or that the punch that it needs to really keep me hooked. Anyway, those are my thoughts on One Punch Man Volume 1. It was a fine story, not a lot to it, but hopefully as the series goes on, there's a bit more to it. I managed to check this out from my local library, so don't forget to patronize your local libraries. They might have fun manga that you can pursue, and I highly recommend that you find this at your local library. Seek it out, as I haven't quite found a reason to purposely go out and buy it yet, but that might change if the series gets better, or something like that. But if you have any thoughts on this, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that other people can find out about this series or this author if they're curious about that. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and punching related travels. Farewell.